Appamada's programs and facilities are supported through your generosity. Your support really does make a huge difference. You'll find a link for contributions on the website at appamada.org/contribute. Thank you so much.
I know that I'm on a different place than other people and need some orientation. So I figured I'd show up not knowing whether it really, I don't know, whether this was right to show up or if I should talk to you separately.
Well, you're our guinea pig. You're the first person who's joined at the stage that you're at. Have you cut your face pieces out yet into the 10 different pieces, or do you just
No,
have it marked?
it's marked but not cut.
You're the
And
first
I also
person.
don't have my I have practice thread, but I don't have my real thread yet.
Okay. Okay. Well, the pinning is something of a to do, so that should be enough for us to work on today.
Okay.
But you're kind of our test subject on how to have someone join. You know, I know Marla loves to just hear how other people are doing it, or like always is open to it. But I think Marla, you're now so far ahead that you may not be interested in this phase. Like you're interested when Lynn is talking about something to do with the squares or the frame, because you had yet to get there at the time that she was asking that. But would you be interested in rehearing talking Mino through? Yeah.
The answer is yes, I would, and there are a couple of reasons. I find it just interesting and meditative to hear as people go through that process, and I'm looking forward to sewing another rakusu. So everything I learned will be useful in the future.
Let it all sink in. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, then we may not do breakout rooms after all, Mino. We might just do it, and then those who want to turn their computer volume way down are welcome to do so. Hi, Lynn. Okay, so yeah, Rosemarie, Marla, Lynn, do y'all have any burning questions? Anything that's stopping you from proceeding from where you are today?
I don't have burning questions, but I just wanted to tell you where I'm at with my frame.
Okay.
So I finally got measurements that I think are okay.
Great.
Really took a while. And where I'm at now is cutting out the border, cutting it. And then with my AAA card, I'm going to try to do the Hera crosses. And I'm realizing that my surfaces aren't smooth, so I'm going to move the frame to a smooth surface to try that. Do you think this will work? Have you ever done it with a credit card, John?
I haven't. Someone was experimenting with it though in this group, and I don't think it was you. I think someone has trudged this path before. Lynn or Marla, do y'all remember who someone experimented with? Not okay.
Well, I'll try it and
let us know.
I do have a question. I am pressing on the marked crosses. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, every marked line.
Right. Okay.
One thing that I don't know if I've recommended before that might be valuable, if you have cutlery that is really well polished, it has smooth edges on all sides, that those smooth edges may be adequate if you find the card. I just worry that the card won't be stiff enough for you to be able to get enough force behind it. But the back of a table knife maybe could be adequate. It's kind of spooky to think of using a knife on fabric, but you could use a test piece and use the non-serrated side. Yeah.
Okay.
And kind of get creative there. I could even imagine the tines of a fork, if they're well polished and rounded, could even work. No, you'd probably bend the fork, but there's any number of hard, smooth, but rounded objects should work.
So I have those two tasks, the cutting and the crosses, and then I may need some instruction after that.
Okay, yeah, great. Marla?
Some time ago when we were as a group talking about measuring the interfacing, it became clear that some of the pieces weren't uniformly cut. And
That's right.
Anne said that wasn't going to be a big problem. So I am, just so you know, I'm way behind everybody else, but I am pinning my face to the interface today. I've watched all of the videos around that. And what I'm noticing now is that the space between my face and the edge of my interfacing at one corner is only about, well, if I center it, it's only about 1.5 centimeters, maybe not even quite 2 centimeters. Does it sound like that's still okay?
Will you hold it up so I can see where it's more concerning?
Right
Wow,
here.
yeah, that really is narrow. And we hold it a little higher so I can see the bottom edge as well. Huh. And that
then
is,
the other side. Whoops. Yeah,
wow,
the other
yeah.
side is a little bit, yeah, it's similar when it's
So as long as the distance from the chalk line, the seam allowance of your face, as long as that seam allowance line to that top edge is fewer than 4.2 centimeters, that's really what we need. I think you got one of the really out of Annie Goglin ones. So just make sure that those top edges are fewer than 4.2 centimeters. It's unfortunate that your interfacing is that size, but I don't think it will prevent the rakusu from forming and functioning normally.
Okay.
You'll probably face you will probably need more care when you're doing the 3 lines of stitches around the frame, the 1, 2, 3 lines. These two you may just be going through only the frame fabric, which may require a little more care. But I think overall, the finished garment will look and function the same. So
Okay.
if you would like, I'd be willing to discuss with Anne cutting and sending a new piece of interfacing, if you'd be interested.
We had talked about that, but she did not think it was necessary. And the good news is that, I don't know if you knew, but I got some schmutz on my face, and she said, why don't you go ahead and wash it? Well, it shrank. And so I guess that's good now. It was 1 whole centimeter on the width, which doesn't affect this problem, but 0.5 centimeter on the sides.
Okay.
So it's better now that
Yeah.
it did shrink.
Yeah, that's interesting. Convenient for your interfacing
Yes.
conundrum.
I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to go ahead and proceed and see what challenges I hit.
Great. I think that's reasonable.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi, nice to see you all. I'm just going to say that I can't stop too long tonight, and where I'm up to is I'm still doing these little tricky squares. I've undone the one that I was not happy with, and I've done one that I think is more where I'm at. Yeah, so I have plenty to be doing, but I'll have to go at 6:15.
Okay. Well, we'll be glad to have you while we can.
Thank you.
Okay.
I guess what you can start doing actually, so you have marked all of the, it's completely marked.
Yeah.
Okay. So what you can begin doing is the cutting. Do you have a
Okay.
good pair of fabric shears?
I have good, yeah, I do. And you mentioned pins too. So I'll go find my pins.
Yes. And then if you're comfortable, would you like to, before I go get the thing, would you like to discuss how to cut?
Sure.
So actually, no, I need the camera for that. So I'm gonna go grab the camera and then I'll be right back.
Okay, I'll see you back in a couple minutes.
Okay. So when on the face that you have there with Mino, are there lines that were marked differently? Perhaps Anne put little X's on them as she often does. You're muted.
Yes, she had me put X's on lines to cut. I'm wondering, seeing as I'm not looking at the guide now, I only have X's on some vertical lines.
Mhm.
but didn't put any X's on any horizontal lines. And I'm wondering if I just forgot or if,
There should be, yes.
yeah. Okay.
So give me just another moment. On the
Is there only one horizontal cut?
there is only one horizontal cut.
Okay. And I think I can tell where it is because it's the series of 3 lines closer
That's right.
together.
Yes, where the seam allowance, the middle between the 2 seam allowances.
Yeah.
If you want to pull up the, I'm going to send you the link in the Zoom chat for the worksheet, the Rakusu face worksheet that I was attempting to print. If you want to just open that and then confirm that that the dotted line with the 14 on the left, that's as long as that's the line that you're going to be cutting.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Very good. Then yes, go ahead and cut. I'm going to keep trying to print stuff.
Okay. Should I cut? Do I cut around the margins as well? Around the very outside?
That's right. Yeah. So you should only, on all 4 sides, you should just have the seam allowance.
Okay, great. I'll begin. I'm only a little nervous taking a scissor, taking shears to the fabric.
You can always do practice cuts on another piece if you have scrap or in those margins.
On the margin, yeah.
Do you want? Do you know how to? Have you had experience cutting fabric?
Yeah, a bit. I have.
Okay. Yeah. Would you like any of the just any quick pointers at all?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I appreciate your experience.
I think the best guidance, and it may not be super critical in a piece of fabric this small or where the cuts are this detailed, but attempt to keep the fabric fairly flat and fairly level. Although as you've marked it, I do wonder how essential that is. It's not like you're cutting along a pattern. But yeah, not picking it up and cutting it, holding it in the air. Okay. Not just trying to provide care as you're doing it.
Sounds good. Okay, John, I've made my cuts.
Okay, great. So, do you have your pins?
I do.
Ready for you. Do you have a printed copy of the instructions? You don't necessarily need one, but I'm going to recommend you take certain notes.
I could print one very easily, but I have this whole packet here.
Yes, that's the one.
Okay.
So I encourage you to get these while I do hope to make some adjustments and disambiguate some sections of this or change it in ways that we do things a little differently. Generally speaking, these are excellent instructions, and you probably could produce a rakusu with these if you were willing to, make a couple of mistakes in the process. So definitely encourage you, think of these as a resource.
Okay.
So before we get into it though, do you have a writing utensil handy?
Mm-hmm.
So there's 3 basic things that I want you to write down about that I think disambiguate this first section here. So first, when we talk about first line and second line, that is referring to their distance from the seam allowance or the cut line, where 1s and 2s were separated and where A's and B's were separated. That cut line, when we talk about first and second line, we're talking about their distance from that cut line.
Okay.
So here on this thing, I need a pointer. This will have to suffice for now. So that would be the first line on top, and that would be on the second line on bottom because that is where the cut was.
Okay. So the first line is usually what will be the stitch.
The seam allowance, yeah. So similarly, this also applies to verticals. We're not there yet. First, you're going to attach all of the A pieces to the B pieces before you attach any of the panels together.
Mhm.
But when you get to it, the same is true on these verticals, where this is the first line and this is the second line.
Okay.
So if that's clear to you, you don't need to write that one down. But I do encourage you write the next down, that the A piece is always on top of B piece. Or yes, the A's are always on top of B.
Okay.
This is true both when it comes to sewing order. As you can see here, this A piece is completely on top of the B piece.
Mm-hmm.
It is also true of their configuration in the finished garment. So when you talk about top in terms of looking at the garment face on, the top and bottom, as well as in profile, which piece is on top of the other in terms of their layers. A is always on top of B.
Okay.
So you don't need to necessarily be able to internalize that now, but do write it down, because that's kind of a universal truth when you're producing this. And then last but not least, the top piece, or the second line of the top piece, goes to the first line of the bottom piece. You'll see what this means here very soon when we start looking at these A's and B's. But I want you to write it down with the language of top and bottom. So the second line of the top piece lines up with the first line of the bottom piece.
First line, bottom piece.
And that matters because that will also guide your construction of when putting the panels together, not just attaching the two pieces of the panel. So we call this a panel.
Okay.
And this is either the short piece or the tan. And this is the long piece, or a cho. Actually, I might be having those backwards, but short piece and long piece. And then together they combine to make one panel, and there are 5 panels in total.
Okay.
Clear as mud?
Yeah.
Yeah. At least those are kind of like immutable truths. Whether or not you understand them, they are a good basis. So it's good to have them written down.
They'll make sense when I'm doing it.
Yes, precisely. So it looks like I only have the paper guides to work with today. I don't have any more fabric example pieces. So I will demonstrate. I also don't have, I only have, okay. So I guess I'm going to do the best I can using these little paper guides.
Okay.
So take your 1A.
Just so you know, I have the paper guides you gave me as well.
Yes, good. Okay.
I can see them in person.
So I'm going to use the 5A piece. I don't remember exactly which ones I attached all the way on yours, but this is analogous to your fabric 1A and 1B, just mirrored. So to do your first pinning, you're going to so you always pin these pieces wrong side to wrong side. So as you can see, this is how you would pin the initial construction. So I have the wrong side of the fabric, the side that is not marked, and this side are facings for both A and B piece. As you can see, 5B is it is as.
And should I be starting with 1A and 1B?
Yes. What I recommend is you can either do all of your first lines, so that you end up to make one panel, as you can see here with these staples, there are 2 lines of stitches to make a single panel. You can either do all 5 first lines and then go through and do all 5 second lines, or you can proceed where you do a full panel, both lines. I recommend doing all of your first lines, then all of your second lines, because then you can, the second line requires an iron. To get from first line to second line, you need an iron. So you doing all of your ironing in one go is convenient. Let us pretend that is the first line of A, and that is the second line of 1A. And let us pretend that this is the first line of B and the second line of B. So you should see at the very top of this piece, you should see way up here, you should see a 1A.
Okay.
And you should see the 1B right here, I believe. Is that what you see? 1B is
Yes.
here and 1A is over here. Okay.
And they're both oriented right side up.
Right side up. So you can see both of them. So take, put your fingers as I have them here. And the method is called pinch and lift. You're going to try to keep the, bring them together so that the wrong sides are now facing each other.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can see, I'm kind of, and you just pick them up as you've seen here. So now you should have the first line of B, and if you flip it, you should also see the first line of A directly behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Did that make sense to you, and were you able to follow along?
Yes.
Okay.
And so now, just to confirm, it's the first line from the top of 1B and the first line from the bottom of 1A.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Because the first line is based on kind of that cut line or that axis that you're joining along. The first line could also be these vertical lines when we get to attaching panels, but the first line is the away from the edge that you're trying to join.
Okay.
So the first, good, okay. So now remember that we're doing the second line of the top piece. Bye, Lynn. Have a good evening. So second line of the top piece to the first line of the bottom piece. So what works best for me and for many sewers is to simply slide the bottom piece. It doesn't matter which way you have it oriented, as long as you remember that A is always on top. But you just slide it down until you can see that that second line is now aligned with that first line of B.
Okay.
Do you think you've got it?
I think I've got it.
So that is where you are going to pin. First, you need a minimum of 1 pin for every set of vertical lines. And you need to pin to the best of your ability. Actually, give me just a second to kind of make this a better, a more functional example, so that I can really show you all of the details of pinning and there. And right now we're kind of exploring which of these is better to guide folks along. So you can either pin exactly the second line to exactly the first line, meaning that you will go through this crosshair here and come out exactly through the crosshair on the back, or on the B piece. So that is one option. The second option is to, when you start doing the folding on this, a tiny bit of fabric gets lost in the folding process. It's trapped in the material of that fold. And so To offset that, you go through on the A piece and you come out just in the seam allowance. So in this case above, you would come out just in the seam allowance of the B piece, maybe 1 millimeter above.
Okay.
And you'd need to do that consistently through every top and bottom piece and through every panel when you're joining the panels. So if you choose to do this, it does need to be every single time. But those are those are the two methods that are available. And I think we've offered everyone in this group and everyone in person the option between the two. So you may either do exactly crosshair to crosshair or come out just in the seam allowance of above or away from the line.
Could I see what that looks like on the A side with you
Yes.
just outside of the...
I'm going to finish pinning just so you can see kind of the whole process. So what I want to do is, so I'm directly through that line, and I want to go directly through the line on this side and come out in the vertical line on the other side. So I can see here that I'm a little bit off on the A side. So I'm actually going to back that out of just the A piece of fabric, which I think does require a little bit of practice. But if you're real careful, you can do it first try. And then come back through exactly on the line. This will help ensure that you are, that your vertical lines are, that when you kind of fold this out, that your vertical lines will continue continuously. So I'm through the verticals on both sides. So it has gone through exactly what is wrong with autofocus? So it has gone through that crosshair exactly on that second line and come out just above the crosshair, just within the seam allowance of the B piece. And let me demonstrate the alternate method. Like I said, you need to pin at a minimum each of the vertical lines. And then the more the merrier. There's not, I mean, I guess you could probably reach excess. There's, it's worth doing. It's worth pinning well. I'm trying to come out exactly through the crosshairs on the back this time. Okay, that's decent. It's about as good as you can with my sloppy line. And then right on and through the line on the back, trying to come out, and it's going to be, I've twisted the fabric to make them a line, but that ideally would have been. So those are kind of the two options.
Okay. So yeah, so when you're in the offset way, you're actually sliding the fabric offset just a hair.
That's right. Yeah, they're completely moving orientation. And if you notice, that's actually how the little paper guides, those were done in the offset manner. Well, to the extent that a little paper guide with staples can be. It sounds like you are leaning towards the offset method.
Well, I'm on the fence about it because it seems like there's a potential, I'm trying to, seeing as I haven't done the rest of the sewing or the rest of the pinning yet, I'm like, is there a potential to mess up the directionality of that and have, it doesn't seem like, it seems like you'd be easily offsetting from the second line of A to and then the spot on the second line of A, and then offset towards the seam allowance on the first line of B every time. And so there wouldn't be an issue with like accidentally messing up the directionality of the offset.
Yes.
No, it doesn't sound like,
I think
it just needs to be.
No, it's just a matter of making a decision and sticking to it, I think.
Okay. I'll do the offset. If it sounds almost like it's recommended.
Well, it is what so Anne and I are biased against it because it obfuscates and complicates hybrid teaching.
Gotcha.
However, it is what is called for in the instructions that you have printed with you. You'll find it page 4, approximately matches.
Yeah, pin exactly through the second line of 1A and about 4 millimeters.
Whoa,
That's a lot.
that's a lot. Yeah, no, we never did that. When I was doing this with Peg, we did 1 to 2 millimeters because you would end up with excess if you did. Like you'd end up with
Well, what's
chalk
funny is
lines
that
showing.
I don't, yeah, off the top of my head, I don't think that 4 millimeters is an eighth of an inch. But anyway,
I think you're no. Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I guess I've got a ruler. 3.5 maybe. That's a 16th. Wait. Yeah, it's like 5 point something for an eighth. That's a quarter. I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, I would say if you are comfortable with doing it, you will. Really, there is no repercussion either way. So I think do what feels right to you. I going through this last time, doing it on mine, I chose to do the on this Rakusu that's going to some unknown person at some time. I did do the method of exactly line to line, and you know it looks fine. The difference comes out in measuring the length of this frame piece, the actual dimension of the rectangle formed by all of these pieces when joined. That's what changes, and it changes maybe 4 millimeters total.
So it gets, does it get bigger or smaller when you?
Smaller. It gets about 4 millimeters smaller, which on the grand scheme of things, I don't even think is noticeable if you put the two method, if you Arakusu made method 1 next to one made with method B side by side, you would probably be hard pressed to identify which without a ruler.
I'm on the fence.
I would be comfortable kind of making a decree if you wanted one.
Sure. I think that, yeah, sure.
Do exactly line to line, because that is what we've been, when offering decrees, that is what we've been doing.
Is that okay? Is that what most other people here have done? Yeah. I think that it appeals to something in me because I can actually line it up every time versus sort of approximating 1 millimeter every time.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of how to communicate what it will do. So when you unfold like a book, these two pieces to like you can see in the little ones I made for you, the little dioramas. It will make it. You'll kind of have to not stretch this. If you fold this exactly on the seam allowance, the A piece, if you fold that seam allowance under exactly on the line, it may have a hard time reaching this line, and that's what you're trying to match. You're trying to have this exactly match. It's very easy to compensate by either folding under less seam allowance, so you actually have
a little more line showing.
Exactly. Or you can just kind of pull the fabric. You don't want to do that too much though, because it ends up, you can actually see that on this one here.
John, when you have a chance, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So,
Mino, are you, I guess, Mino, I've given you enough food for thought for now.
I'll pin panel A, the first.
Okay. And I'll review, and then when you're comfortable, we can do, I would suggest pinning all 5 in one go while it's fresh in your mind. Rosemarie.
okay, so I did the knife worked okay, but the impressions are very light on the other side, but they're there. I can see them.
Okay.
However, what you need to know about the other side where the impressions are is that it's all marked up with different ways that I was trying to measure the frame, because I used both sides. And so this is the back side. So it's got, I can't.
Oh, you muted yourself.
I thought I was muted the whole time. Okay.
No.
So yeah, so it's very marked up, the backside, but I can see the impressions of the crosses.
Okay.
I don't know. I think that I can work with them as is. It's just the knife. I used the knife, and it just didn't. It didn't make as firm an impression as the Hera did. I could tell from what other people were doing. So I'd like to move ahead, and maybe you can show me how to start with the folding.
Okay. Yes. Let me see. I think I have.
I have the little folded up frame. I can grab that.
Okay. Yeah, grab that.
Okay. Yeah, that. Let me grab that.
Okay. So let me grab the instructions so I do not mislead you.
I can go along with you. Get this
Yeah.
Page 6.
Will you? Page 6, indeed. We should be at the frame construction stage.
Right.
So, and this first sentence describes the value of the Hera lines. You're going to have your chalk marks on the inside, so having Hera marks is just for a visual aid on pinning. You could probably, kind of peel it open to peek where the drawn lines are, but that's going to be, kind of a pain in the bahootie. So the first step, so a couple of guidances, look at, let's see. Does it say? No, I guess it doesn't matter at this phase.
Hold on one second. I just want to grab my notebook.
Okay.
And I do have it. Go ahead.
So I have this wee child of a sample. The first step is to match the two ends together with the fabric, with the chalk lines on the inside. And match so that the seam allowance of the ends, where both of the ends have a seam allowance, you'll want to match that seam allowance line to line. But you don't need to pin just yet. More important, as you can see in that photo, is to pin along the diagonal lines, the V's, and make sure that they are exactly line to line.
It's funny, the black, I printed this black and white, so it's really hard to see that little photo. What's going on in the little photo.
Yes, even in color, the brown fabric that the teaching fabric that they used was not the best. Yeah. Really, I would have liked, if in the future, at this day and age, we can always just link to larger photos, like Maria's link tree. If only that was available when this was made. So, what they are doing in this photo. And let me see if this white chalk will show up actually. So there is a pin here, and a pin here, and a pin here, and a pin there. So there presumably are visible Hera lines forming that V shape. And so that's all that you are doing at this phase. On this first corner, or on this, you just want to pin exactly line to line of where the ends come together, and
I think I can do what you just showed me. And do you need to go sit in the back for a few minutes?
No.
Oh,
I mean, I'm not getting any better. So,
okay,
there's,
you're gonna push through.
yeah, and it's just, I mean, a little bit of mental acuity is, that's fine. If I say something totally errant, then y'all can call me on it. You will.
Okay, so let's see how this, we can do this.
And Rosemary, I recommend place the pins in the direction that you sew, with the point of the V facing away from you. So by that I mean, so I sew right-handed, so I come right to left. And so I started here. Is this mirrored for y'all too? Do y'all see this on the left?
Yeah.
Okay, well, this should be on the right. This is my right here that I'm showing.
Yes, that's good.
Oh, okay. So I went this way, and then when
And
you
then the other
sew
way.
this, and then I went down that way. That's right.
Okay, great.
I'm actually gonna. Oh, hey, I've already written myself that guidance.
Yeah, it's not very lined up. Let me show you how it looks when I open it up.
He's away, I think.
Oh,
No, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. I just can see your hands. Sorry.
so I don't know if you can see this, but when I open it up, they're not quite lined up.
Okay, but on the back, you're pinning based on the Hera lines.
Yes, I'm trying to as best I can see them, and yeah, the first going up to the point seemed to be, in line together. I think I have a clue, John, as to what the alignment was.
Okay.
Because I cut the ends of my frame prematurely, so I'm really working end to end to get as much as I can. And the seam allowance for both sides is not exactly the same.
I see. Okay.
So it might be that.
No, that almost, if they're different, that would definitely cause what we observed.
Yeah.
So I guess
It's
you could do.
I'm trying to approach it maybe from the bottom.
One thing you can do. Would you like a
Yeah,
suggestion on
sure,
one way to do
course,
this?
Of course.
So I'm gonna take this piece I was using for Mino. Let me see a good distance. Okay. So you can actually. So I've got the line that I want to align. So what I would do in your case is I would do where the V meets the seam allowance on the sides. So the long side seam allowance and the V, I would go through that point, and this would of course be the Hera lines, not the chalk lines, but I haven't Hera'd this. And you can go through a single piece of fabric. You can actually take wherever you want to align that. And you can take that and align it on the underlying fabric, and then once you have them, you know that is precisely where you can do it that way, and then you can maneuver. The way I recommend people do it is maneuver the fabric until that comes out perfectly perpendicular, kind of a straight up like that, and then you know that they are right on top of each other.
Okay.
So maybe give that a try.
I'm almost ready for the next step, John. I don't know if we'll have time, but
yeah, we can squeeze it in.
Okay. 1 second.
Rosemarie, are you ready for the?
Yes.
Okay. So this will be. I'm gonna have to do this pretty quick. We're about to bow out. So hold it as I've shown it here, where you have the two. Or do it just so you can see it for your own eyes. You don't have to hold it for me.
Okay.
So where you've got the heads of the pins visible, flip it and begin kind of progressing along the frame until
I'm sorry,
you come to.
I wasn't looking at you when you flipped it, so I'm sorry.
Okay. kind of turn this over and
Okay.
begin working your way along, pulling it toward you, pulling the loop toward you
Are
until you come.
are you separating the
Yes.
two? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Pull it towards you. Keep pulling.
Until you reach the next the X that the next X you see.
Okay.
And when you see the X, you will be folding it on the center of the X and then pinning on those lines there.
Pinning on the angled lines, the Hera lines.
That's right. So I'm going back to, I'm kind of starting over. Were you able to follow, or?
Yeah,
So-
I got the in the cross of the X. I got
Uh-huh.
that. I've
And you,
folded that over.
yeah, and it should be, as to the best you can, it should be exactly folded right on the cross of the X.
Sorry, hold on a second.
It's okay.
Okay, got it.
And once you see it like this, you'll do exactly what you did here. So you're going to pin going that way, and then another pin going that way.
Okay, and then I do that all around.
That's right. Yep. So once you've got this corner, you will, again, with the loop separated, you will pull it, the loop toward you until you make it to the next corner. You will fold, pin, pin, and then pull it towards you until you reach the last one. Goodness, mine's so creased. Okay. Until you reach the very last one, fold, pin, pin, and then you'll be ready for instruction on the how to do the running stitch.
The running
If would you like instructions now on how to do that in your spare time, or would you like to wait until next week for live instruction on that?
I think I'll wait because I have a phone call to make.
Okay.
And I'm thinking that maybe it's on the video somewhere.
Yes. Well, I know. I think Anne was the one who did it
Okay.
with a lot of good verbal explanation. I know I did it on camera at
Okay.
least one corner, but I don't think I was being very verbal that day. I think it was like the week after Anne had done it, so I chose not to be very explanatory.
Okay. Well, we'll see how I do with the pinning, and then I'll look, and if I can't find it, I'll wait.
Okay, sounds great.
Wonderful. Happy Thanksgiving, John, and thank you so much.
Yeah, same to you. Have a good one.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving if you're doing that.